Today, we are diving into a real financial thriller. It's the story of Bausch Health, a company that is somehow trapped between making a ton of money and being on the verge of complete failure. It's a wild paradox. So this is the big question, right? The mystery that has had investors scratching their heads for years. On one side, you've got this absolute cash machine. But on the other, a company that's constantly just fighting to stay alive. How on earth is that even possible?
I mean, look at this. Year in, year out, Bausch Health generates over $1 billion in free cash flow. Now, on paper, that screams healthy, stable company. But that number, as impressive as it is hiding some really deep, really serious problems.
Okay, so let's peel back the layers here and really figure out what's going on. The problem isn't the money the company is making today. It's all about the crushing weight of its past.
And here it is, the first monster, hiding in the closet, $24 billion in debt. That is not just a number on a page. It's a direct result of a time when this company, under a very different and, frankly, infamous name, went on a massive, debt-fueled shopping spree.
The crazy part wasn't just how much debt they had, but when it was all due. The company was staring down what's called a maturity wall of nearly $10 billion in 2025. Think about that. A huge chunk of their debt was coming due all at once, and they had no way to pay it.
Now, to really get how they got into this mess, we have to talk about their past life as Valeant Pharmaceuticals. See, unlike regular pharma companies that pour money into discovering new drugs, Valeant had a different idea. They pioneered the Valeant model. They'd just buy other companies' drugs, slash the research budget to almost nothing, and then jack up the prices. We're talking price hikes of over 60% in a single year. It was a strategy that made them notorious.
And that kind of strategy, well, it doesn't just attract profits. It attracts attention, and not the good kind. We're talking investigations from the Department of Justice, the SEC, Congress, you name it. Their tactics were so controversial that they earned this damning nickname, the Pharmaceutical Enron. And a reputation like that, it doesn't just hurt your brand, it unleashes a legal firestorm.
It all added up to a war on two fronts. On one side, you've got this ticking debt bomb, and on the other, an absolute legal nightmare. They paid out $1 billion settlement, but that didn't even stop it. Other investors were still coming after them for another $3 billion. Then, a patent war erupted over their biggest moneymaker, Xifaxan. And just to top it all off, a lawsuit popped up that threatened the one escape plan they had.
Which brings us to their first truly daring escape plan. I mean, facing this perfect storm of debt and lawsuits, the company put together this incredibly complex restructuring in 2022 to try and pull themselves back from the brink.
The plan was as brilliant as it was complicated. Okay, so first, they spin off their crown jewel, the Bausch & Lomb eye care business, in an IPO. Second, they load up that new, separate company with a bunch of fresh debt. And third, they go to their old creditors and try to convince them to swap their risky old debt for new, safer debt. The whole goal was to use the strength of their best asset to fix the parent company's totally broken finances. And the real key to this whole thing was some pretty clever financial engineering. They put Bausch & Lomb into something called a non-guarantor subsidiary. You can think of it like putting your most valuable stuff in a locked safe that no one else has the key to. Suddenly, Bausch & Lomb's assets weren't on the hook for the parent company's old debt, shielding them from all those angry creditors.
And you know what? It worked. Well, sort of. The move was a partial success. They actually managed to chop that terrifying 2025 maturity wall in half. They had bought themselves some breathing room, a few precious years to try and get their house in order.
But here's the twist. That great escape in 2022, it wasn't a cure. It was basically a Band-Aid. And as the clock kept ticking, those old problems started creeping right back. And just like that, it was déjà vu all over again. By early 2025, they were staring down another maturity wall, this time for almost $5 billion. The 2022 deal had only kicked the can down the road, and now they were right at the end of that road again.
So this forced their hand. They had to come up with a second, even more audacious plan. If the first one was a great escape, this one was more like a high-wire heist, with way bigger risks.
Now, the math on this next move is just staggering. They announced a massive $7.4 billion refinancing. But get this, the catch was they only used it to pay back $4.7 billion of the old debt. So what happened? They bought themselves more time, sure, but their total debt load actually increased by $2.7 billion. They were digging the hole even deeper just to stay afloat.
So, after two gigantic, high-stakes maneuvers, the company finds itself at a massive crossroads. They've kicked the can about as far as it can possibly go, and now they're facing what looks like a final showdown. And this leaves them with two very stark choices. They can try to pull off yet another out-of-court deal, which almost certainly means taking on more debt at even higher interest rates. Or they can finally face the music and file for Chapter 11 bankruptcy. A bankruptcy could finally clean up the legal mess and fix their finances for good, but it's an incredibly messy, expensive, and super risky path to take.
After years of these brilliant but totally desperate financial gymnastics, this is the one question that's left. Have these elaborate corporate heists been a masterclass in how to survive against all odds? Or is it all just a really, really complicated way of postponing a collapse that was always inevitable? Only time will tell.